I just got back from a business trip in San Francisco, sitting in the underground garage of my Los Angeles apartment, staring at my phone when I suddenly burst out laughing. My home's robot vacuum and smart scale had just ruthlessly betrayed my husband. The robot's backend showed that the area where we usually keep the full-length mirror had been moved, and it had been repeatedly cleaned 9 times last night. The smart scale also had a new entry, a young woman's body data, 45 kilograms, 16% body fat. And right now, the man I'm married to is wearing silk pajamas, posing online as a 30-year-old single golden bachelor, gearing up to rake in cash during his big live stream at 10 o'clock tonight. To get me out of the way, he thoughtfully booked me a high-end hot spring hotel in the suburbs, then turned around and brought that girl group member named Chloe back to our home. He thought everything was flawless, but he forgot that all the smart home control rights for this apartment are firmly in my hands. I'm the internet project manager. I pulled the car key out, but I didn't rush upstairs to confront him. Since he loves playing the high-tech persona and acting like a single elite in front of the whole internet, tonight I'm going to follow the trap he dug and turn his big live stream into a real-life abyss he'll never climb out of. I just got back from a business trip in San Francisco, parked in the underground garage of my Los Angeles apartment. Sitting in the driver's seat, staring at 2 screenshots on my phone, I suddenly laughed out loud. My wedding ring is still on my right ring finger, but the man I'm married to is about to be completely destroyed on the internet tonight. It happened a minute ago. I habitually open my phone to check the status of my robot vacuum at home. The cleaning map showed a large black blind spot. That area usually holds my full-length mirror, but it had been moved. The robot's backend log clearly showed that empty spot had been repeatedly cleaned 9 times last night. Then I casually opened the smart scale connected to the same Bluetooth gateway. Besides the data for me and my husband Austin, there was a brand new record. The time was exactly 6 a.m. today, weight 45 kilograms, body fat 16%. That's definitely a young woman's body data. Just as I was looking at the screen, a notification popped up on my phone. My work email received a message from Austin. He had modified my itinerary in the email and thoughtfully booked me a high-end hot spring hotel in the suburbs for 1 night. In the body of the email, he wrote, "Baby, you've been working too hard on your trip. Take an extra day to relax. Come home tomorrow night. I love you." I leaned back in my seat and casually pulled a pen out of my bag. Austin thinks I'm still on my way back, but my car is already parked under the building. He posted an announcement on Twitter and TikTok for a huge live stream at 10 o'clock tomorrow night. On his homepage, there's a big photo of him in silk pajamas, holding a guitar, playing up his 30-year-old single golden bachelor persona. He thought a night at a hot spring hotel would get me out of the way. He's been desperately building a fan base online to sell his expensive streetwear hoodies, telling thousands of female fans he's craving a soul connection. Now, he's even brought that girl group member named Chloe directly into our home, acting out a cohabitation scene right under my nose. I flipped my phone face down on the passenger seat, yanked the car key out with my right hand. I didn't rush to open the door and go upstairs, and I certainly didn't plan to storm in and start a fight. I unzipped my backpack, pulled out my laptop, and plugged it back into the car's power. Since he loves playing the high-tech persona and acting like a single elite in front of the whole internet, I'm going to follow the trap he dug and turn his live stream into a real-life abyss he'll never climb out of. I started the car, backed out of the underground garage, and drove to a motel 2 blocks away from home. I paid cash, took the key, and walked into a small room lit by fluorescent lights. I tossed my backpack on the bed, sat down at a chipped little desk, and snapped open my laptop. I connected to the motel's Wi-Fi, tapped a few keys on the keyboard, and directly logged into the backend logs of my home router. Even though I'm a project manager at an internet company, tonight I didn't need to look at any complicated code. I scrolled down the management page, only looking at the network device connection names at the bottom. The pages scrolled down one by one. Every night from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., the smart gateway traffic in our apartment would spike instantly. The backend list clearly showed 2 high-end desktop computers and 3 dedicated live stream spotlight devices. They were uploading video data at a rate of tens of megabytes per second, streaming it all out. I stared at the familiar device code on the screen and casually opened Austin's TikTok page on my phone. His follower count had been skyrocketing over the past few days, and his bio had been changed to single, living alone, a musician craving a soul connection. In his latest short video, he was wearing a silk pajama set, holding that expensive guitar he'd splurged on, sitting on the Italian leather sofa I had picked out, singing and playing. My personal art photo, which I had placed on the accent wall behind the sofa, was now completely covered by a massive black acoustic foam panel. I scrolled down to the comments section. Thousands of female fans were flooding it with hearts, constantly calling him hubby. Austin was replying to each one in the comments, while also hanging a pre-sale link for his high-priced trendy single hoodie in the bottom right corner of the screen. Seeing this, I pulled a ballpoint pen from my bag and heavily wrote down 10 p.m. tomorrow night on the hotel's notepad. That was the time for his announced big live stream. I remembered last week, when I was still at home packing my suitcase for a business trip. Austin, for once, didn't sleep in. He walked over to the entryway on his own, helped me lift my suitcase, and even shoved a piece of strawberry cake into my mouth. At that moment, his phone dropped to the floor, the screen lit up, and a message popped up from someone labeled Agent Xiao Xiao. The message read, "Bro, Chloe's luggage is already stuffed in the garage. When is your wife leaving?" Back then, Austin snatched the phone, shoved it into his pants pocket, and casually wrapped his arm around my neck, planting a big kiss on my cheek. He smiled and told me he hoped I could stay an extra week in San Francisco this time and earn more bonus money. I just brushed the dust off my skirt, grabbed my suitcase, and walked out the door. Now it's 10 a.m. the next day. I'm sitting on the single bed in the hotel room, dialing Austin's video call on my phone. The phone rang 3 times before he picked up. On the screen, Austin was wearing a clean white tank top, standing at the kitchen counter in our house, slicing tomatoes. Sunlight streamed in through the window, and his smile looked sunny and honest. I propped my phone against the hotel pillow, reached out with both hands to rub my temples, and spoke to the camera in a very tired voice. I told him that the Hot Spring Hotel in San Francisco was just too comfortable, and the clients were especially warm, so I planned to stay one more night and fly back to Los Angeles tomorrow evening instead. When Austin heard this, the kitchen knife in his hand visibly paused. His eyes widened instantly, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up. He set the knife down on the cutting board, leaned his face closer to the camera, and said to me in his signature gentle voice, "Baby, you've been working so hard on this trip. Don't worry about the money. Stay as long as you want and enjoy yourself." Just as he was whispering sweet nothings into the camera, a hand suddenly flashed across the edge of the dining table in the bottom right corner of the video. That hand had nails painted with this year's hottest glitter nail polish, holding a stainless steel spoon, and it naturally reached over to scoop up some avocado from the salad bowl Austin had just made. Austin's peripheral vision clearly caught this. His body jerked a big step to the right, using his broad back to completely block most of the dining table. While continuing to nod at the camera, he waved his left hand behind him, signaling for the person back there to leave quickly. I smiled at the screen and nodded gently. Under the bedsheet, my right hand had already dug the pen tip of that ballpoint pen deep into my palm. I stared at this man, who was acting flawlessly in front of the camera, and hung up the call directly. After ending the video call, I placed my phone on the desk. The noon sun in Los Angeles streamed through the dusty blinds of the motel room, casting long, pale strips of light on the floor. I pulled a bottle of ice-cold water from my backpack, unscrewed the cap, and took a big gulp. The cold water rushed straight down my throat, slowly relaxing my fingers. My phone vibrated right at 1 p.m. Austin's name popped up on the screen. This time, he didn't video call, just sent a string of WeChat text messages. I unlocked my phone, and the WeChat messages kept popping up one after another. Austin sent a file titled Agreement on Change of Shared Property Ownership. Right after that, he sent a long voice message over a minute long. I tapped the voice message and put the phone on speaker. Austin's voice, hoarse and feigning thoughtfulness and anxiety, echoed through the small motel room. "Claire, take a look at the file I just sent you." My streetwear hoodie company is signing a year-long endorsement deal tonight with Chloe and her girl group. The brand and the girl group need to see our financial strength, so they want us to use this downtown apartment as collateral for a working capital loan. Claire, if this loan doesn't go through, my music dream, the one I've been staying up late and losing hair over for years, will be completely ruined, and tonight's big live stream launch will fall apart. Just sign it quickly and send me the electronic signature back. I squeezed the plastic water bottle in my hand, making a crunching sound. I downloaded the file, zoomed in with my fingers, and scrolled through it line by line. This agreement didn't require any professional legal knowledge to understand. The scheme was so obvious, even a kid could see it. At the very bottom of the third page, there was a supplementary clause printed in small font. If one party causes a debt default or business loss, the property will be fully owned by the party who contributed more capital. The apartment we live in now in downtown Los Angeles was bought 3 years ago. Back then, Austin's parents used their hometown house as collateral to transfer over what they called a down payment, covering the bulk of the total car and property costs. The remaining loan, plus monthly maintenance fees and property taxes, were all deducted directly from my salary account as a project manager. Now Austin sends me this agreement, clearly using tonight's live stream as an excuse to turn this apartment into his personal property and kick me, the one who's been paying the mortgage on time, out the door. His second voice message came right after, his tone already impatient, even condescending. Claire, you saw the message. Why aren't you saying anything? You're always traveling for work. You have no idea how much pressure I'm under at home. Chloe and her girl group are willing to help me promote without charging an appearance fee. They believe in my talent. As my wife, can't you even sign a document to support me? That dead-end salary you earn won't make you rich. If you ruin my launch tonight, our marriage is really over. I stared at the words on the screen, set the water bottle down firmly on the table. I pulled out a chair, sat down, cleared my throat, and pressed the voice message button with my thumb, replying in a very meek, even slightly flustered tone. Austin, don't panic. I was just reading the contract. You suddenly sent me such a big file. I was really taken aback. You know, I only know how to work overtime on IT projects at the office. I don't understand anything about e-commerce or streetwear. I want to support your music dream, and I'm willing to sign this. But you have to let me understand if the girl group you're working with tonight is reliable. What if they're scamming you? I let go of the button, and the message went through. There was silence on his end for about 2 minutes. Clearly, Austin didn't expect me to agree so quickly. He thought his guilt-tripping and harsh words had scared me. Soon, he called me directly, his voice much more excited than before, with a triumphant tone. Claire, I knew you'd understand me. Chloe and her group are totally reliable. They have hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok. I'll send you the electronic version of tonight's manufacturer contract and the cooperation agreement I signed with her girl group right now. Take a look, then sign the property mortgage document. I need it urgently. I let out a cold laugh into the air, but into the phone I said, okay, send it over. I'll help you review it and see if there are any contract traps. 5 minutes later, my work email pinged twice. 2 electronically signed contracts with official seal sat in my inbox. One was the order contract Austin signed with a clothing factory in Hangzhou, stating each hoodie costs only $15 to produce, while he plans to sell them for $199 in the live stream. The other was his revenue-sharing agreement with Chloe personally, stating that Chloe would act as a single girlfriend, interactive persona during the live stream, and take 30% of the night's sales. I sat in my chair, downloaded both contracts as is to my local encrypted hard drive. Then I opened the property share change agreement Austin had sent. I unzipped my bag and pulled out an electronic stylus I use for signing on my tablet. I stared at the square on the screen where I needed to sign, held the pen in my right hand, and quickly scribbled across the screen. I signed my name, Claire. But the handwriting I used was completely different from how I sign at the bank or on company onboarding documents. I deliberately added 2 extremely subtle artistic loops after the last letter of my name, and I intentionally misspelled my middle initial by 1 letter. Under California civil law, a signature with such obvious writing flaws that don't match the legal identification can be challenged as invalid at any time if I submit a handwriting analysis to the court later. I took a screenshot of the signed page and sent it directly to Austin via WeChat. Within 10 seconds, Austin sent 3 emojis of kowtowing and fist pumping, followed by a voice message. "Babe, you're amazing. As soon as tonight's live stream ends and I make the money, I'll take you straight to Rodeo Drive to buy that Hermes bag you've been eyeing for half a year. You just relax in the Hot Spring Hotel and wait for my good news." I tossed my phone onto the table without replying to his message. I flipped my laptop screen back open. At this point, full control over the smart home system in our apartment was still firmly locked under my admin account. Austin always found these back-end settings too much trouble. I even set up the router password for him. I slid my finger across the touchpad and clicked into the Smart Locks Management backend. The screen displayed the currently stored fingerprint and facial recognition data. There were mine, Austin's, and a newly created unnamed fingerprint entry, timestamped from the night after I left on my business trip. I stared at that unnamed fingerprint record, lightly clicked my right index finger on the mouse, and selected it for deletion. Then, I also selected Austin's fingerprint and facial data and dumped them all into the removal bin. I completely disabled the Smart Locks offline unlocking feature. Now, except for a set of 24 random-digit advanced admin passwords that only I knew, no one could open that security door from the outside by scanning their face or pressing their finger. After doing all this, I turned my head and looked out the window at the sun already starting to dip westward. On the apartment's router connection list, both Austin's and Chloe's phone signals showed as high-frequency online status. I opened the smart speaker's microphone monitoring function on my computer. The speaker was sitting next to the TV in the living room. A sharp guitar tuning sound came through my computer's speakers, followed by Austin and the young woman's giggling. The woman's voice sounded shrill. "Austin, is your wife really that easy to fool? She actually signed that agreement?" Austin snorted with a dismissive tone. "She's just an IT sheep who only knows how to work late in her cubicle." I threw out a few lines about dreams and how life's unbearable, and she signed in a panic. "Once I make money from tonight's live stream, I'll pay off that BMW rental for you first." I sat in the dim motel room, listening to their conversation unfold line by line. I pulled a stack of blank printer paper from the drawer and fed it into the shared printer in the motel hallway. The printer started clicking as it worked, spitting out sheet after sheet of data from the output tray. I stood in front of the printer, watching the first page clearly show 9 trajectory patterns the robot vacuum had traced near my bedside. Then I neatly stapled the stack together and stuffed it into a black briefcase. I shoved the printed sheets into the black briefcase and zipped it shut. My phone screen lit up again. Austin had sent a short video on WeChat. In the video, he was spraying a bottle of champagne across the living room's wooden floor. Chloe, wearing a sequined miniskirt, was blowing kisses at the camera. Austin turned the lens to his own face, laughing and shouting into it. "After tonight, I'm $1 million a year single man. Some people are still eating instant noodles in a motel." As he yelled, he casually tossed a stack of colorful live stream flyers all over the floor. I threw my phone onto the motel bed, picked up the briefcase, and walked out of the room. At exactly 4 p.m., I sat down in a Starbucks across the street from the apartment building. From the window seat here, I had a clear view of our balcony on the 17th floor. Austin had tossed the 2 pots of succulents into the trash to make room for 2 massive fill lights. I sipped my American coffee and dialed a number. On the other end was my legal advisor from before I joined the internet company, Old Scott. I didn't waste any words. I just used my left hand to send the freshly packed zip files to his personal email from my laptop. These zip files included the import contract for Austin and the factory's silk pajamas, the data from Chloe's smart body fat scale that had been weighed 9 times, and the property change agreement Austin had just sent me, complete with a fake artistic signature. Old Scott was typing on his keyboard over the phone, his voice steady. "Claire, there's a joint liability clause in these sponsorship contracts. As long as we can prove he committed identity fraud against consumers during the live stream, the sponsoring brands have the right to demand he return all advance payments and pay triple the penalty. I held my coffee cup in my right hand, staring at the two increasingly bright fill lights on the 17th floor balcony. I said to old Scott, "Scott, draft 2 formal documents right now. One is a divorce petition for the California court, citing bigamy and marital asset transfer. The other is a legal notice to the largest clothing sponsor tonight, informing them that their signed mail live streamer is using a fake single, solo living persona to commit e-commerce fraud." Old Scott chuckled on the phone and said, "No problem. In half an hour, these documents will be sent to their corporate email as electronic lawyer letters." I hung up, packed my laptop into my bag, stood up, pushed open the glass door of Starbucks, and walked straight across the street into the apartment building's property management office. Property manager James was sitting behind the marble front desk reading a newspaper. I walked over and placed my owner ID card on the counter. James looked up and greeted me. I pulled a copy of the property asset mortgage document Austin had sent me from my black briefcase and laid it in front of James. In very calm English, I said to him, "James, the male tenant in Unit 1702 on the 17th floor, Austin, is planning to conduct a large-scale commercial live stream in the apartment tonight without permission. He's brought multiple high-power spotlights and has illegally installed flammable acoustic foam on the walls. As the sole actual mortgage payer and property owner of this unit, I request that the property management strictly conduct a fire safety inspection tonight in accordance with fire regulations." James glanced at the name on the asset certificate and then at the paper. He immediately stood up and pulled up our home's electricity usage monitor on his computer. The screen showed that our current load had already exceeded 4 times the normal level. James frowned, clipped his walkie-talkie to his belt, and said to me, "MS. Claire, rest assured. We conduct quarterly routine fire drill tests, and tonight we'll keep a close eye on this floor." I smiled at James, put my owner card back in my pocket, and turned toward the elevator lobby. The red digital display on the elevator was counting down floor by floor. Austin was probably now in the living room, swaying to music and tuning his $3,000 professional microphone. He must think he's already got this apartment and my substantial savings in his grasp, even planning how to spend tonight's earnings. I stood in front of the elevator and pressed the up button. The door slid open slowly in front of me, empty inside, the metal walls reflecting my face clearly. I stepped in and turned to face the entrance. I knew that in a few hours, this place would get lively. I didn't take the elevator directly back to the 17th floor. I pressed the button for the basement level and returned to the building's garage. I walked to the storage unit assigned to our family, pulled out my keys from my bag, twisted open the padlock, and yanked open the heavy metal door. The storage unit was piled with Austin's old guitar cases he didn't use and boxes of returned streetwear brands. I walked to the back, pushed aside 2 dusty speakers, and dragged out an old black leather suitcase that had been sitting in the corner. This suitcase was a keepsake from my grandfather, and inside it had always held the original paper documents from when my parents bought their first small apartment in California 20 years ago, along with checkbooks for a few rarely used trust backup accounts under my name. I crouched down, spun the combination lock on the suitcase with my fingers. With a click, the lock popped open. I reached inside and felt around. The trust documents that should have been neatly stacked were missing a large portion. I dumped everything from the suitcase onto the concrete floor. A few loose white papers scattered out, stamped with an extremely glaring blue seal. It was a copy of a joint signature authorization form processed in June of last year. I picked up those papers and held them under the fluorescent light, flipping through page by page. On the last page of the authorization form, my mother's name was scrawled crookedly, the handwriting traced with a ballpoint pen, the obvious tracing marks making the edges of the letters slightly blackened. Below that forged signature, right next to it, was Austin's neat, square personal signature written with a black marker. During the 2 weeks I was back in China visiting family last year, Austin secretly took this forged document to a Wells Fargo branch in Santa Monica. Exploiting my mother's inability to understand English and read the fine print, he linked the corporate account of the streetwear trading company he'd opened on the side to a $200,000 long-term fixed deposit account in my mother's name, money she had set aside for retirement, binding them into a joint guarantee arrangement. I flipped to the last page of these authorization forms. Wells Fargo's system had printed a row of blue electronic stamps on the paper. This past April, because Austin Streetwear Company had posted losses for 3 consecutive quarters, the bank had automatically deducted a full $120,000 from my mother's retirement account to cover his company's shortfall. Standing on the cold concrete floor, I neatly folded these deduction notices with the bank's official seal in half and tucked them into the inner pocket of my jacket. I didn't stop. I opened the old suitcases on the ground one by one, and under a plastic box specifically for guitar cables, I found a coin-sized black device sealed in a transparent Ziploc bag. It was a high-power wireless signal receiver with a handwritten sticky note on it that read, "Living Room Backup Network Test." I flipped the device over and saw an activated new SIM card inserted on the back, issued by AUS, Virtual Mobile Operator. Besides the main router at home, Austin had secretly set up a separate mobile data broadband line without telling me. The debugging videos he sent me this afternoon were all transmitted through this hidden gateway. He had long been prepared for me to cut off his network via the main router's backend, so he'd arranged a second escape route for himself. I placed this black signal receiver on the ground, lifted my foot, aimed the heel of my thick-soled Martin boot at its plastic casing, and stomped down hard. A crisp crack rang out. The black plastic shell shattered into several pieces, and the green circuit board inside was crushed into fragments by the heel. I bent down, picked up the tiny SIM card that had fallen out, snipped it in half with a nail clipper on the spot, and tossed it into the trash can beside me. I brushed the dust off my hands, relocked my grandfather's old suitcase, and pushed it back behind the speakers. I pulled the storage room's iron door shut, snapped the padlock on, turned around, and strode toward the elevator lobby. The elevator was rising from the basement level 2. I stood in front of the elevator doors, pulled out my phone, and opened the Wells Fargo mobile app directly. Using my personal senior administrator privileges, I transferred all the liquid cash from the joint loan repayment card that Austin and I shared for the apartment into my personal independent trust account. The balance on the card instantly dropped to $0.00. After completing this transfer, I opened WeChat and sent the photo I had taken in the basement, the authorization document with my mother's forged signature, directly to Austin. Less than 30 seconds after the message went through, my phone started vibrating wildly. Austin called me 5 times in a row via voice calls, and I rejected every one. Then, a long string of voice messages with rapid, breathless tones popped up from the bottom of the screen. I tapped the first one. Austin's voice had completely lost the gentle, calm demeanor he had while cutting tomatoes in the kitchen earlier. He was shouting on the other end, his voice sharp and strained from extreme tension. "Claire, where did you transfer the money from the joint card just now? The factory for tonight's live stream just pushed me to pay the last $50,000 prepaid quality deposit. And what do you mean by sending that authorization document from last year? Are you secretly checking my accounts? Let me tell you, that money was my mother-in-law's voluntary support for my business. Transfer the money back right now. Or if tonight's live stream goes wrong, don't expect to keep the trust fund your grandfather left you." I watched dozens of text comments pop up on the screen in rapid succession. Chloe's name was faintly audible in the background of Austin's WeChat voice messages. She was screaming from the living room of the big house next door that the power cord for the fill light seemed a bit short. I didn't type a single word in WeChat. I pressed and held the voice button with my thumb and said only one sentence into the microphone, my tone as steady as if I were reporting progress in a weekly company meeting. "Austin, tonight at 10, I'll be sitting right outside the door of the downtown apartment watching your live stream. Play it however you want." I released my finger and sent the voice message. At that moment, the elevator doors slid open with a click in front of me, the bright cabin lights spilling out. I stepped inside. I looked at myself in the mirror, pulled my jacket zipper all the way down, and pressed the thick stack of deduction notices tightly against my chest. The red number for the 17th floor was flashing rapidly on the display panel. The elevator stopped on the 17th floor, where room 1702 was located. As soon as the doors opened, the hallway was thick with the smell of cheap perfume mixed with the tobacco scent of the cigars Austin usually smoked. I stepped out of the elevator carrying my black briefcase, but I didn't head straight for our apartment door. Instead, I backed up to the fire door at the end of the hallway, hiding my body in the shadows, leaving only a sliver of an eye to stare intently ahead. Our apartment door was tightly shut, but the cheap security door with terrible soundproofing couldn't block out the noise inside. With only half an hour left until the big 10 p.m. live stream, the sounds of an argument were pounding through the wooden door, one after another, echoing off the empty hallway walls. Smack. That was the sound of a glass cup shattering on the marble coffee table in the living room. Then, Austin's raspy roar pierced through the crack in the door. "Chloe, don't you dare act high and mighty with me. I'm telling you, the last $50,000 in quality guarantee funds are stuck at the bank and can't be sent out. That woman transferred all the liquid cash out of the joint account. If that Hangzhou garment factory doesn't get this money tonight, they won't enable the one-click shipping permission on our live stream backend. You call your bar manager right now and tell him to front the money from his personal account." Then came Chloe's screech, even shriller and more piercing than Austin's. "Austin, bullshit. When we signed the contract, you swore up and down that your wife, that IT project manager, was just an ATM and that your house in the city center could easily be mortgaged for hundreds of thousands. I turned down 2 major million-follower brand deals on Twitter for tonight's single elite late-night private session. And now you can't even scrape together 50 grand, and you want me to find someone to front the money? If that crappy guitar of yours doesn't sell tonight, my team will strip you naked tomorrow and drag you to court." Bam! A heavy kick landed. Based on the sound, Austin must have kicked the arm of the Italian leather sofa in the living room. The wooden frame let out a dull crack, probably snapping a spring inside. I leaned against the cold metal fire door, hands in the pockets of my black jacket. I pulled out my phone and lit up the screen. On the smart home system's backend log, the largest fill light in the living room was flickering wildly. They'd been overloading the capacitor. I tapped to open the main router's real-time network monitor. Austin's phone was frantically making calls, while Chloe's phone was constantly refreshing the pre-live stream reservation count on TikTok. The reservation number on the screen had already jumped to 110,000. Female fans across the country were waiting for this 30-year-old, single, wealthy, heartfelt singer-songwriter to kick off his romantic shopping night. The noise inside grew louder. Austin started throwing other things in the living room. I heard my crystal goblet smash against the wooden floor, shattering into pieces. His voice sounded completely desperate, tinged with a selfish madness. "Chloe, shut up. Who do you think you are? You're no saint. I used company money to clean up that mess you made in Vegas last year. If this live stream tanks tonight, Wells Fargo will come to repossess this house tomorrow. My mother-in-law's $200,000 in retirement savings have already been drained by $120 grand. I have no backup plan left. Tonight, we have to sell those 100,000 cheap hoodies, bought for $15 each, at $199. Now go change, pull your zipper lower, and call the camera Big Brother a few more times, got it?" Chloe screamed inside, followed by a series of scuffling sounds. The metal microphone stand crashed to the floor with a loud clang. "Austin, you want me to sell my body? You animal, forging signatures to scam your mother-in-law's retirement money. You even cheat your own wife. Are you even human? If you don't raise my cut to 50% tonight, I'll start a live stream on my phone right now and expose you as a cheating, fake single bastard." I stood behind the fire door, listening to these two tear into each other. I raised my right hand and glanced at my watch. 9:45 p.m. 15 minutes left until the live stream officially opens to the public. I pulled my hands out of my pockets, my face completely cold. I set my black briefcase on the fire escape steps, unzipped it, and took out the laptop connected to the car's 4G hotspot. I didn't hesitate for a single second. Nor did I bother to look at the WeChat messages Austin had just sent, a mix of pleas and threats. My left index finger landed steadily on my laptop's trackpad, quickly swiping the cursor. First move. I opened the pre-written mass email. In the recipient field, neatly listed were the CEO and legal director of the biggest clothing brand sponsoring Austin tonight, along with the editors-in-chief of 2 local Los Angeles gossip blogs that specialize in influencer drama. I hovered my right middle finger over the enter key and pressed down firmly. Click. In that instant, the evidence, including the 9-time deep night cleaning blind spot map from the robot vacuum, screenshots of Chloe's body fat percentage data, and the ironclad proof of Austin forging my mother's signature to transfer $120,000 from Wells Fargo, all turned into electronic signals, hurtling through the wireless network and slamming into those people's work inboxes. Second move. I moved the cursor to the smart home core control panel in the bottom right corner of the screen. The main gateway icon, representing the entire house's power and network, was glowing green. Without any hesitation, I double-clicked on the trackpad and entered the 24-digit random advanced management password that only I knew. Confirm. Revoke all secondary account unlock permissions. Confirm. Disable offline physical rotation function for all smart locks in the house. I watched the red exclamation mark pop up on the screen, then tapped the confirm key one last time with my right fingertip. From inside the heavy security door of apartment 1702, a dull grinding of metal gears immediately sounded. That was the smart lock, in extreme security mode, forcibly extending 3 reinforced steel bolts into the door frame. From this moment on, unless the people inside used a chainsaw to cut the door in half, they would absolutely not be able to open it by turning the interior handle. Third move. I took out my phone, but instead of calling Austin, I directly dialed the intercom for James, the property manager on the ground floor. The phone rang once and connected. James's voice came through the speaker. "Miss Claire, what's the situation?" I closed my laptop, held it against my chest, and spoke into the phone in a perfectly steady, emotionless English. "James, the 2 tenants in apartment 1702 are now out of control, smashing glass and damaging the load-bearing structure. At the same time, the high-power spotlights inside have caused short-circuit sparks on the wiring. For the real safety of the other building owners, I need you to immediately activate the building's fire smoke drill system and cut off all civilian high-voltage power gateways on the 17th floor." James didn't waste words on the other end. He simply replied, "Understood. Security personnel and fire drill activation will be fully initiated in 30 seconds." I hung up, put my phone in my coat pocket, picked up my black briefcase from the floor, and walked out of the emergency stairwell at a leisurely pace. In my high heels, I walked step by step to the front door of apartment 1702. Through the thick security door, Austin and Chloe were still arguing over the $50,000 warranty deposit, and Austin was furiously smashing the wall with a guitar case. I stood outside the door, looking up at the smoke detector above, which was glowing green. 10, 9, 8. I counted silently in my head. When I reached 1, the green light above suddenly turned a glaring scarlet. In the corridors of the entire building, a deafening fire siren, like an air raid alarm, instantly blared. At the same time, the bright white light from the high-power spotlights that had been seeping through the crack under the door of apartment 1702 went out with a snap. The entire room plunged into a deathly darkness. The piercing fire siren bombarded the area above the door of apartment 1702. The red lights in the corridor flashed, casting the white walls in a horror movie effect. Neighbors next door had already frantically opened their doors and were running toward the stairwell in their pajamas and slippers. I stood at the front door, with the emergency exit stairs just behind me to the right. I crossed my arms and watched the heavy security door, which remained completely still. Behind the door, Austin was slamming his body against it wildly. Bang! 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 Each impact made the security door shudder. Inside, Austin was pounding the door with his fists until they were bloody and shouting at the top of his lungs in English. "Open the door. James. Property management. Whoever's out there, unlock this damn door. The power's out." The smoke alarm is going off. We're going to suffocate. Chloe was inside, coughing and screaming, her high heels clattering against the floor in a rapid, chaotic rhythm. Austin, you useless piece of trash. What kind of crappy smart lock did you buy? Why can't I turn the handle from the inside? My clothes are still in there. If my face gets covered in smoke, I swear I'll make your life hell. Just as their argument was reaching a fever pitch, the elevator doors at the end of the hallway slid open with a sharp click. Property manager James came rushing down the corridor, followed by two young security guards carrying crowbars and fire extinguishers. Trailing behind them were half a dozen American neighbors from the same floor, still shaken by the blaring alarm. James spotted me standing at the corner of the door right away. He aimed his high-powered flashlight at the door of apartment 1702 and shouted, "Miss Claire, are you okay? We've cut the main power to this unit per the fire protocol. Is any equipment inside on fire?" I shook my head, set my black briefcase down by my feet, and pulled my phone out of my coat pocket. In front of James and all the neighbors behind him, I swiped my finger down to close the fire drill simulation test interface on my phone. The deafening siren in the hallway stopped instantly, and the surroundings fell into an eerie silence. I stepped forward and quickly tapped a 24-digit random administrator password on the fingerprint touchpad of apartment 1702's door. Click, click, click. The 3 reinforced steel bolts inside the door frame let out a crisp unlocking sound. I reached out with my right hand and yanked open the heavy security door. The room was pitch black, lit only by the glow of Los Angeles' night skyline coming in through the balcony. The living room was a mess. Several huge black spotlight stands lay scattered and toppled on the floor. Austin's silk pajamas were soaked through with his own sweat, and the foundation he used to cover his acne scars had been washed away by sweat, leaving pale, muddy streaks down his cheeks. Chloe was crouched by the shoe cabinet near the door, clutching a fake Hermes bag with a big logo printed on it. One of her high heels had fallen off, and she was standing barefoot on shards of glass on the floor. As the door swung open, the neighbors outside raised their phones, cameras aimed into the room. Austin froze for a moment when he saw so many people standing outside, then his eyes locked onto me at the front. His eyes went wide, and he flailed his arms in the air, pointing at me and yelling, "Claire, it's you. You cut the power, didn't you? You locked the door, didn't you? Do you have any idea that hundreds of thousands of people were waiting for my live stream tonight? I already took the brand's deposit. This is a crime. You're deliberately trying to ruin my company." I took a step forward and walked straight into the living room. I bent down and picked up the heavy black briefcase at my feet. From inside, I pulled out a thick stack of papers I had just printed at the motel. Without a word of explanation, I swung my right arm and slapped the whole stack hard against Austin's sweat-covered face. The papers scattered all over the floor, a few of them sticking to his damp silk pajamas. In clear, everyday English loud enough for every neighbor in the hallway to hear, I said, "Austin, take a look at the data on the floor. This is the blind spot mapping from the robot vacuum's 9 cleaning cycles last night. That spot usually holds my mirror, but last night it was moved to make room for Chloe's cot." The moment Austin heard the words robot vacuum, his face went from muddy foundation to a dead, ashen gray. He dropped to his knees with a thud and started picking up the papers with trembling hands. I didn't give him a chance to catch his breath. From the inside pocket of my jacket, I pulled out the fund transfer receipts stamped with Wells Fargo's blue seal and shoved them right under his nose. "This one is the joint signature authorization you forged with my mother's signature last June at the Santa Monica branch. You quietly siphoned off a full $120,000 from my mother's retirement fixed deposit account to cover the losses in your crappy streetwear company. Wells Fargo's legal team received my police report an hour ago. All your independent accounts tied to the joint guarantee are now frozen in real time by the system." When Austin heard the words "account frozen," his body gave a violent jerk. The papers slipped from his hands and scattered everywhere as he collapsed onto the floor. Chloe, who had been clutching the fake bag, let go of it the moment she heard that. She scrambled to grab one of the papers from the floor, saw the Wells Fargo deduction record clearly printed on it, turned to Austin, and slapped him across the face.
Slap.
The slap was extremely hard, and a trace of blood immediately seeped from Austin's lip. Chloe clawed at Austin's silk pajamas like a madwoman, tearing several large gashes in the fabric, screaming, "Austin, you liar. Didn't you say you still had $300,000 in liquid cash? You even stole your mother-in-law's retirement money. All your accounts are frozen. How are you going to pay for my BMW lease? How are you going to pay for tonight's live stream commission split?" Austin's face was covered in red marks from Chloe's scratching. He desperately pushed at Chloe's shoulders while shouting at the property manager James outside the door. "James, get this crazy woman off me. Call the police. Call the police now. Claire is framing me. That money was voluntarily given to me by my mother-in-law. Voluntarily." I stood in the middle of the living room, holding my laptop, coldly watching the two of them wrestling on the floor. Just then, Austin's phone, which he had tossed on the sofa cushion, suddenly chimed and then began vibrating wildly in rapid succession. It was a push notification from TikTok's official backend, with the volume turned up high, crystal clear in the quiet living room. Due to a joint fraud report filed by the actual account owner and brand partners, it has been verified that host Austin engaged in false single persona promotion and contract fraud. This account is permanently banned and officially added to California's e-commerce blacklist. Immediately after, a second call came in. The name on the screen was the English contact from the garment factory in Hangzhou. Austin scrambled over, grabbed his phone, and hit the speaker button. On the other end, a man with broken English and a voice as loud as thunder shouted, "Austin, you liar. The sponsor brands here in the US just sent us a legal notice saying you're involved in identity fraud. They've completely canceled tonight's product guarantee. Not only that, our factory just checked with the bank. Your $50,000 quality assurance check bounced because your account was frozen by the bank. Our 100,000 hoodies are all stuck in the bonded warehouse, costing thousands in storage fees every day. Our American lawyer will file a lawsuit at the Los Angeles court tomorrow, demanding you personally cover all material losses, $350,000 total." Click. The call was mercilessly hung up on the other end. The phone slipped from Austin's hand, fell to the floor, and the screen landed on the shattered pieces of the crystal glass he had broken earlier, instantly cracking into a dense spiderweb. He collapsed like a noodle with its bones removed, completely slumped beside the sofa whose frame he had kicked apart. Outside the hallway, the American neighbors started pointing and whispering, with phone camera flashes flickering across Austin's face. A few wives I often greeted in the elevator shook their heads and loudly commented in English, "Oh my God, a musician who seemed so honest, and he even stole an old lady's pension. So disgusting, living with another woman at home while pretending to be single to scam fans." Hearing the murmurs outside, Austin suddenly lifted his head and looked at me. He saw the cold, utterly unsympathetic expression on my face. His knees scraped against the floor with a harsh sound as he crawled directly to my leather shoes, trying to wrap his sweaty arms around my calves. I took a big step back, making him lunge at nothing, his face smacking flat against the floor littered with broken glass. Austin buried his head in his hands and begged me in a tearful, grating voice, "Claire, I was wrong. I was really wrong. I didn't mean to take that money. I just wanted to keep my company alive. If I lose this $350,000 tonight, my life is completely over. Please, you're a project manager with company stock options, right? Just cover the $50,000 bounce check first and save my TikTok account. We're married, Claire. You can't just watch me end up on the street." I looked down at his face, twisted in sheer panic. I turned my laptop screen back toward him, right in front of his eyes. It showed the latest status of the joint repayment account at Wells Fargo. The balance had clearly read 0 5 minutes ago. I said to him, "Austin, the money in that card was the surplus I saved from paying off 3 years of mortgage with my own legal salary. Since the agreement you sent me this afternoon says, if one party causes a debt default, the property goes entirely to the party who contributed more. Your bounce check just now constitutes a serious debt default." Austin's eyes were fixed on that zero, his hands frantically scrambling across the floor for the scattered papers. He opened his mouth, trying to say something to argue back. I didn't give him a chance to speak. I turned my head and looked at James, the property manager standing at the door. In the calmest, most direct way possible, I stated the facts to James. James, the male tenant of Unit 1702, Austin, is no longer qualified to reside in this building as an owner. His name will be completely removed from the apartment's co-ownership list starting now. Tonight, due to his unauthorized installation of a mobile gateway and overloading high-power appliances, he has created a major fire hazard for this floor. As the property owner, I am requesting that the management immediately initiate the eviction process and remove him and all his personal belongings from this building. James immediately straightened up, tucked the crowbar behind him, and spoke into his walkie-talkie to the downstairs. Copy that. Security on the ground floor, send 3 people up now to forcibly remove the violator from Unit 1702 and escort him out of the apartment building. Hearing this, Austin jumped up from the floor like a wild dog whose tail had been stepped on. His mask of pretense was completely torn off. He screamed at me in impotent rage, flailing his arms in the air, trying to grab my black briefcase. Claire, you vicious woman. You're trying to drive me to the wall. I've been working my ass off outside to build an image. All for this family. Why won't you use the trust funds under your name to help me? You ruined me tonight, and you won't get off easy either. Before he could reach me, the 2 burly security guards had already stepped forward. Their thick arms, one on each side, pinned Austin, shirtless, wearing a torn silk pajama top, against the dusty wall next to him, like an eagle catching a chick. His cheek pressed against the wall, he kept spewing curses. Meanwhile, Chloe, crouching by the shoe cabinet, didn't even have time to grab her clothes. Barefoot, stepping in the red light of the hallway, she fled like a stray dog down the emergency stairwell without looking back. The security guards pushed Austin out the main door. His guitar case, scattered silk pajamas, and dozens of hoodies printed with his single-man brand logo were all dumped onto the hallway's anti-slip carpet. Austin stood barefoot at the elevator, his hands gripping the metal doorframe. The guard grabbed his arm, yanked him down, and shoved him into the descending elevator car. The elevator doors slammed shut with a click, and the red numbers on the wall began to drop. 16, 15, 14. I turned around and walked back into Unit 1702. The door was wide open. The apartment was silent now, no alarm, only the wind from the balcony blowing in, rustling the papers on the floor. I walked to the center of the living room. On the floor lay the stack of forged deduction vouchers with my mother's signature, covered in Austin's dirty footprints. Next to the shattered crystal glass was the property share transfer agreement with my intentionally wrong signature. I bent down, picked up my mother's original documents one by one, brushed off the glass shards, and neatly placed them into my black briefcase. I didn't even touch the transfer agreement. I left it on the floor. I pulled out my phone and unlocked the screen. Old Scott had just sent me a WeChat message, a screenshot of a PDF file. It was the receipt for the divorce lawsuit already accepted by the Los Angeles court, clearly stamped with a red electronic seal, the court date set for next month. I casually forwarded that screenshot to Austin's WeChat. Then, I opened my Wells Fargo account on my phone. The money transferred into my independent personal trust account this afternoon was all there, the numbers clearly displayed. I walked to the entrance, took the spare door key hanging on the wall, and put it in my pocket. I pulled the heavy security door of the apartment shut behind me. Click. The 3 reinforced steel bolts locked tight without the smart gateway control. I carried my black briefcase toward the elevator. Passing the hallway trash can, I opened my phone, selected the Whole House Smart Control app, and pressed delete. A progress bar popped up on the screen. 3 seconds later, the green icon vanished completely. The elevator doors slid open in front of me. I stepped inside and pressed the button for the first floor. In the mirror, I adjusted the collar of my black jacket and switched my bag to my right hand. The elevator reached the first floor. I walked out of the lobby into the empty streets of Los Angeles late at night. I hailed a taxi, opened the door, and got in. The car started and drove straight into the night.